Hi guys, welcome to my first ever online class. I know this has been a very challenging year for all of us, but I still hope we get to learn every bit of information as we go along with the different topics in physiology. This subject has been improved last school year to become a more interactive and student-oriented class so as to give the impression that physiology is fun even with slight difficulty. I know this unique and new method of learning is easily adapted by most of you, since I think everyone here is a little bit techy and modernized. I hope we all enjoy this new normal amidst all these hardships. This is the start of your journey to become a full-fledged professional, and our goal here is for you to learn and to reach your dream. We also have our share of battles during our time, so let us not please consider this as a suffering. So let us be um, inspired and determined, and let us remain focused all throughout the year. In behalf of everyone in the College of MedTech, I welcome you all to Anatomy, Physiology with Pathophysiology. I'm Dr. Jenina Canoy, and I'm your first lecturer for the week. So the introduction in the overview of the human body, the learning objectives are to identify the levels of organization, identify the principal systems of the body and describe the major functions, and to describe the anatomical position, anatomical planes in association with the human body. So we define anatomy. It is the study of the body structure, which includes the size, the shape, composition, and perhaps the coloration, while physiology is the study of how the body functions, while pathophysiology is a convergence of the pathology and physiology. So this study of the disordered physiological processes that cause, result from, or otherwise associated with disease or injury. So here is the organization of life, okay, or the structural organization. So we begin there with the chemical level. Now at the cellular level, our body is made up of the cells, which are organized with specific functions, and these will work together, and this will carry our whole DNA code. Now these cells make up the body tissue at the tissue level, this all with similar structure and function. Now this group of tissues are precisely arranged to accomplish a specific function, and this makes up an organ. While several organs belong to the organ system, which all contribute to a particular function, and all these different organ systems are arranged to make up the organism. The different organ systems of the body. First is the integumentary system. So the skin is the largest organ of the body. So in this system, the organs are the epidermal, the dermal regions, cutaneous sense organs, and the glands. So this functions to protect the deeper organs from whatever injury and drying out, for excretion of salt and urea, and for thermal regulation. It also helps in production of vitamin D and permits sensation of touch, heat, and cold. So the skin has three layers. The first layer there, which is the outermost layer, is the epidermal layer. So this will serve as the waterproof barrier, which creates our skin tone. The second layer there is the dermis, or the dermal layer, which contains tough connective tissue, hair follicles, and sweat glands. While the hypodermal, or the hypodermis, is the deep subcutaneous layer, which is made up of fat and connective tissue. So our skin color is created by special cells called melanocytes, and this will produce the pigment melanin, which are located in the epidermal layer. The next is the skeletal system. So the human skeletal system is the internal framework of the human body. So there are around 206 total bones during adult time, and the bone mass reaches in maximum density at age 21. So at birth, there are even more than 260 bones, okay, but these bones may fuse as one grows old. The human skeletal system serves functions like for support because it's the framework of the body and this will maintain shape, for movement, okay, so the joints in between there allows the movement, for protection, for production of cells, for storage of minerals, and for endocrine regulation. So the human skeletal system can be divided into the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. So the axial skeleton has a total of 80 bones formed by the vertebral column, rib cage, skull, and other associated bones, while the appendicular skeleton has a total of 126 bones attached to the axial skeleton. These are formed by the shoulder girdle, pelvic girdle, and the bones of upper and lower extremities. Since no bones can do much without the help of the muscles to move them, so this makes up the muscular system. These are the muscles attached to the skeleton. So this function for permission of movement, maintains the posture, for circulation of blood, and for generation of heat. So there are three types of this muscle: the cardiac, the skeletal, and the smooth muscle. So this system is controlled through the nervous system. So this is for the coordination uh, of the entire muscle. Although cardiac muscle can be completely autonomous. So there is such thing as a neuromuscular junction. So these are the focal point where a motor neuron attaches to the muscle with the help of a neurotransmitter which is acetylcholine. So these are released from the axon terminal of the nerve cell, okay, when there is an action potential which reaches the synapse or the junction. Then a group of chemical messenger crosses the synapse and stimulate electrical changes which are produced in the muscle cell. So when this acetylcholine binds to the receptor on the surface, calcium is released, okay, due to the impulse of the nerve cell, and this brings about the short muscle contraction. In the nervous system, it is a network of nerve cells and fibers which transmits nerve impulses between parts of the body. So it is highly complex and it coordinates its actions and sensory information by transmitting signals to and from different parts of the body. So this will detect environmental changes that will impact the body and works in tandem with the endocrine system to be able to respond to whatever event. So it allows the body to detect changes and to respond to information by activating appropriate muscle or glands. So this will maintain homeostasis via the rapid transmission of electrical signals. So it has two main parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So the CNS there contains the brain and the spinal cord, while the PNS consists of nerves which are enclosed bundles of long fiber or axon that connects the CNS to every part of the body. So the nerves that transmit signals from the brain are called the efferent nerve fiber, while the nerves that transmit information from the body towards the CNS are the sensory or the afferent nerves. The PNS is further divided into three separate subsystems, which are the somatic, autonomic, and the enteric nervous system. Next is the endocrine system. It is the chemical messenger system. Contains the major endocrine glands. So they have here a feedback loops of hormones released by the internal organs directly into the circulatory system to regulate distant target organs. So these hormones used to communicate in between organs and tissues for physiologic regulation, behavioral activities like digestion, metabolism, respiration, tissue function, sensory perception, sleep, excretion, lactation, stress, growth and development, movement, and reproduction and mood. So the hypothalamus is a neural control center for the endocrine system. So it maintains body homeostasis and it promotes growth and development. So there are chemical messengers which are called hormones. There is such thing as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So this is the axis to which a number of glands signals each other in sequence. So there are several systems present which operated in feedback loops, and these are mediated via this axis. In this system, there are many types of cells that makes up this endocrine system depending on the major gland involved. For example, in the thyroid gland, it has follicular cells, while in the pancreas, it has alpha and beta cells, while the ovaries has granulosa cells, okay, while the testis has the Leydig cells. So any disease of the endocrine system, okay, such as, for example, thyroid disease or diabetes, okay, can be caused because of the presence of misregulation of hormone release, or it could be inappropriate response to the cell signaling. There could be possible structural enlargement. There could be lack of gland, or there is hypofunction. The next system is the cardiovascular or circulatory system. So this has essential components such as the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. So this will permit blood to circulate and transport nutrients, oxygen, and other ions, okay, hormones, and blood cells to and from cells in the body to provide nourishment and to help fight disease, stabilize temperature and pH, and to maintain homeostasis. So it's a transport system. So blood is propelled through the pumping action of the heart. It has two components, the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation is the loop through the lungs where the blood is oxygenated, while the systemic is the loop through the rest of the body to provide oxygenated blood and seem to function in two parts, the macro circulation and the microcirculation. While the lymphatic system is composed of the lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, spleen, thymus, tonsils, and collection of lymphoid tissue. So these are part of the circulatory and immune system. So this goes hand in hand with the two mentioned systems. So this will pick up a fluid, and this fluid is the lymph. Okay, it is a clear fluid carried by the vessels, okay, and returns it to the blood, okay, towards the heart. It cleanses the blood of pathogens and others debris, and it houses the lymphocytes, which acts via the immune system to protect the body. While in respiratory system, it has there the nasal passages, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. So these are structures and organs for gas exchange. Okay. The gas exchange occurs in the lungs, which involves the small air sacs, which are called alveoli, which are rich in blood supply. So the respiratory tract is divided into the upper and lower respiratory tract. So the upper respiratory tract includes there the nasal cavities, the nose, sinuses, pharynx, larynx above the vocal folds, while the lower respiratory tract are the lower part of the larynx, the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and the alveoli. So this will keep the blood continuously supplied with oxygen while removing carbon dioxide. This also contributes to the acid-base balance of the blood. While in digestive system, it is from the oral cavity down to the esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, and other accessory structures such as the teeth and salivary glands, and major organs such as the liver and pancreas. It consists of these accessory structures for digestion. So in the digestive system, okay, it helps in the breakdown of ingested foods to minute particles. Okay, this one can now be absorbed into the blood for delivery to the body cells. So it has the three phases, which involves different types of enzymes during the processes. So the cephalic, okay, which begins with the release of the gastric secretion in response to the sight and smell. The gastric phase, which occurs in the stomach, so there's further breaking down of contents. And then the gastric acid, where acid is released, or the gastric acid here is released until it is passed towards the duodenum, and the intestinal phase, which is there's several enzymes produced, okay, for the further breakdown of the particles. So the peristalsis, okay, it is a term used to identify the rhythmic contraction of muscles that begins in the esophagus, which continues along the stomach, then into the rest of the GI tract. So the undigested residue removed from the body is now termed the feces. Urinary system, excretory system in some, or the renal system. So composed of the kidneys, the uterus, the bladder, and the urethra. So it eliminates waste, regulates blood volume and blood pressure, controls level of electrolytes and metabolites, and regulates blood pH. It is the body's drainage system for the urine to be removed from the body. So it has an extensive blood supply via the renal arteries, and the functional unit of each kidney is what we call the nephron. So after the filtration of blood and processing, waste in the form of urine exits the kidney via the ureters. Okay, these are the tubes made up of smooth muscles, and this will act to propel urine towards the urinary bladder, where it is being stored and then subsequently expelled from the body via urination. Okay, and the amount of urine varies depending on the fluid intake and the kidney function of an individual. The next is the reproductive system. So it contains there the female and male reproductive organs. This system is made up of these organs involved in sexual production. So the major organs here are the genitalia of both the male and the female, okay, which includes also the gamete-producing gonads, which are the testicles and the ovaries. So there's internal fertilization, which occurs after the sexual intercourse. So if there's a successful fertilization, Then implantation will occur. Then there's gestation of fetus, or there's a pregnancy, which will end in childbirth. So female reproductive organs will serve to produce egg cells, also for protection and nourishment of the offspring upon birth. And the female reproductive is to produce the sperm cells. Okay, we need to pause, inhale, exhale. So let us practice our respiratory system. Our next topic is the language of anatomy. So this is derived from the Latin and Greek word, which were the languages of learning during the ancient Western civilization. Learning some of these terms will help us refer to a specific region of the body in the language of anatomists. So these are accepted set of reference terms that are universally understood. So this will allow the body structures to be located and identified precisely with a minimum of words. So the body can assume a variety of positions. So there could be standing, or upright or erect position, or it could be lying down. And lying down could be either on the stomach or on the back. So the relative position of the different parts of the body can still be described if a common point of reference is agreed upon. And this common point of reference is the anatomical position. So in this position, the body is erect with feet parallel. The arms are hanging at the sides with palms facing forward. Directional terms are used by both anatomists and medical personnel to precisely describe the relative position of various organ and structure. Say for example, anterior, okay, these are structures closer to the front of the body, and posterior is closer to the back, which is also the same with ventral and dorsal. While superior are closer to the head, okay, while when you say inferior, it's closer to the foot. On the other hand, medial is closer to the midline, while lateral is farther from the midline. Okay, when you say proximal, the structures are closer to the point of attachment, while if it is farther from the point of attachment, it is called distal. Okay, when it is closer to the body or the organ surface, it is what we call deep, and if it is farther away from the organ or organ surface, it is what we call superficial. When looking at an internal structure, it is necessary to cut through the body along a plane, and these are called slices, okay, or planes through the body, which can be actual or cuts, or it could be imaginary cuts. So there are three basic planes, okay, the sagittal, frontal or coronal, and the transverse. When you say sagittal, it is a plane along the length of a body that will divide, okay, into right and left halves. Okay, they will divide the body into right and left. If that's an equal right and left, that plane is called mid-sagittal or median plane, or median sagittal plane. But if the plane divides the body into an equal halves, or an equal right and left, that is another term which we call parasagittal. While the coronal or the frontal, it divides the body into anterior and posterior. While the transverse plane is the one that divides the body or organ into superior and inferior part. So there are several cavities of the body, okay, which can be divided into the ventral and the dorsal cavity. So the ventral body cavity contains all the organs within the thoracic and the abdominal pelvic cavities. So the thoracic there includes all the space in the ventral body cavity above the diaphragm, while the abdominal pelvic cavity includes all the space below the diaphragm. Dorsal cavity, on the other hand, contains the spinal cavity and the pelvic cavity. So in the thoracic cavity, that can be further divided into the ones that contain the lungs, and all the organs there in between, and this forms the mediastinum. And the mediastinum, on the other hand, contains a cavity that contains the heart, and it's called now the pericardium. The next one is the quadrants and the regions of the body. So there are actually 4 quadrants. Okay, this will allow the localization of pain, tenderness, scars, lumps, and other items of interest, okay, which will narrow, okay, the diagnosis, or it can narrow in on which organ or tissue may be involved. Okay, to help us out here on how to divide the quadrants, okay, we create an imaginary vertical and horizontal line which will intersect at the umbilicus. Okay, above the horizontal line are the upper quadrants, and below the horizontal line are the vertical. Okay, to the right of the vertical lines are the right side, and to the left side of the vertical lines are the left quadrants. These are the actual structures which can be found into the different quadrants of the body. So be familiar with all the organs contained in the right quadrant, right upper, right lower, left upper, and left lower quadrant. This will help to identify the current deceased organ, okay, once the patient comes in complaining of tenderness or pain in whichever part of the abdomen. Aside from the quadrants, the body can also be divided into abdominal regions. So there are actually 9 regions which can be marked using 2 horizontal and 2 vertical dividing lines. Okay. The vertical lines, okay, are the mid-clavicular lines taken from the midpoint of each clavicle, while the upper horizontal line is a subcostal line taken from the inferior parts of the lowest costal cartilages, while the lower horizontal line is the intertubercular line connecting the tubercles of the pelvis. The 3 main centrally located regions or centrally positioned regions are the epigastrium or epigastric region, umbilicus umbilical region, and the hypogastrium or the hypogastric region. On each side of these regions, okay, into right and left are the hypochondrium. On each side of the epigastric region, the lumbar region on each side of the umbilical region, and the iliac or the inguinal region on either side of hypogastric region. So you can see in this diagram the different organs which can precisely identified on each region of the abdomen. please familiarize these organs which can be found in the different region of the abdomen. This is the end of my topic. And the next topic is about homeostasis.